In my past life, I endured a full decade before finally transitioning from being a canary to becoming Julian's wife. But barely after we married, Julian was diagnosed with cancer. Afterward, I took care of him, serving him food and cleaning him, carrying him up and down the stairs. Our marriage lasted only 3 short years before Julian passed away. I had thought that, while love may have disappeared, at least the money would remain. But Julian left all his wealth to his first love, who had gone abroad over a decade ago. The grand villa was taken back, and even the bags and clothes Julian had bought for me were claimed by that woman. Aging, skill-less, hell-less, and penniless, I ended up scavenging water bottles from the trash. Finally, hunting fulfilled my upset, I crossed paths with a wild dog rummaging through the garbage, and it bit me to death. When I opened my eyes again, I was back to the day when Julian coldly asked me whether I loved him or his money. I pursed my lips and immediately smiled, saying, "Of course. I love you." Julian seemed satisfied. But the next day, I went to Julian with a contract for an allowance, asking him to pay me for a year's worth of it. Julian's expression instantly turned cold. "Didn't you say you loved me? Why are you coming to ask me for money now?" Julian was always like this, constantly asking me to confirm whether I loved him or his wealth. And it was because of this insecure questioning that I always found myself caught in strange emotions, making me think he couldn't live without me, that he loved me deeply. In truth, he couldn't live without me. After all, in my past life, when he was first diagnosed with cancer, he didn't contact his long-lost first love, Lorelei, whom he had been thinking about his whole life. Instead, he gave me the wedding that should have been for Lorelei. The ring that should have gone on Lorelei's finger was placed on mine. Even the antique Tang Dynasty necklace his mother had left for him, he gave to me. At that time, I truly thought that after being Julian's canary for 10 years, I had finally made it. I not only gained his love, but also became his legitimate wife. But on the very day of our wedding, Julian was rushed to the hospital for emergency treatment. What followed was endless torment. Before he got sick, Julian was already hard to care for. His tea had to be at 60 degrees. The bath water couldn't exceed 45 degrees. And the bedding needed to be changed every day. He also didn't like strangers touching his things. So for all those years as Julian's canary, I had been his personal maid. After he got sick, it became even worse. Besides his various picky demands, his temper grew worse. If I was a little too rough while helping him with his hygiene, he would push me to the ground. "You're so stupid. You can't even do this properly. I've supported you for so many years. And this is when I get a useless thing like you." And every time after his chemotherapy, when he felt bad, he would vent his anger on me. At worst, he would throw scalding hot water on my head. At best, he'd slap me across the face. Every time Julian mistreated me, I felt deeply wronged and hurt. I even thought about walking away. But every time I looked at Julian's frail body, my heart softened. After all, I truly loved him. Even the doctors said that it was normal for someone with a terminal illness to have a bad temper. So I endured Julian's bad temper, his mistreatment, for 3 long years. But instead of waiting for him to recover, I watched him die. On the night he died, he tightly gripped my hand. "Thank you, Serafina, for enduring and taking care of me for 3 years. The best decision I ever made was listening to Lorelei. Even though I didn't love you, even though I knew you were not a match for me, I still married you. But I gave you the marriage you wanted. And in return for your 3 years of care, I'll make sure you get the life you dreamed of. But I won't leave you my wealth." After speaking, Julian closed his eyes with no regrets. As I looked at his now cold body, standing by the hospital bed, I felt as though my entire body had turned to ice. Tears fell in big drops onto Julian's stiff face. And I couldn't even speak. So, after enduring 10 long years, finally entering marriage with him, and then spending 3 painful years taking care of him, what did it all amount to? Was it just for those last words of his before he died, "You've worked hard"? The thought of the pain from my past life caused my eyes to well up, and even the fingers holding my purse began to tremble. When Julian saw my tear-filled eyes, He immediately became impatient. Enough. I don't know where you learned this bad habit. Crying all the time. I supported you to amuse me. To make me happy. Not for you to cry. You said you loved me. Right? Since you love me this much, I'll give you the allowance you want. But it'll be paid in installments, £100 and a month. In my past life, Julian had said the same thing. At that time, to prove that I truly loved him, I had agreed to his request. But afterward, Julian only gave me 3 months of allowance before he seemed to forget about it entirely. I didn't want to ask again. I thought that by not asking for money, I would earn his respect, his affection, maybe even his love. Little did I know, in Julian's eyes, my behavior was just foolish. You see, Julian was a businessman. And to him, I was no different from the goods in his company. Delaying payments, extending payment periods, even not paying at all, it had all been deeply ingrained in Julian's nature. With the suffocating pain rising in my chest once more, I walked over and kissed him on the cheek. Baby, you know I'm doing this to earn money for my brother's medical bills. Without this money, my brother will die. Honey, please don't do installments. Can you just give me the full amount? I promise. For the entire year of the contract, I will love you 100%. Upon hearing my words, Julian's face remained as unpleasant as ever. Impatiently, having fulfilled wire, he pushed me away. I knew it. You women are never sincere. I gazed at his unsightly expression, feigning grievance. Honey, I don't want money to be involved in our relationship, but I can't sacrifice my brother's life for our love. As I spoke, 2 tears slid down the corners of my eyes. Julian scrutinized my expression for a moment. In the end, he succumbed to my tears and took a check from his drawer, writing the figure of 800 before handing it to me. I looked at the thin piece of paper he held between his fingers. I couldn't help but smile bitterly. Julian Rulli was a businessman to the core. The terms of my allowance had been negotiated like a contract, 1 million for the year, with 80% paid at the beginning and the remaining 20% at year's end, no matter the time or circumstance. Julian always remembered every clause, executing it with the precision of an accountant. And I, in my past life, was foolish enough to mistake such meticulousness for affection. I swallowed the stabbing pain in my chest and pretended to be merely uncomfortable as I accepted the check from Julian's hand. Even as I turned to leave, I forced a trembling smile and said solemnly, Honey, once my brother's treatment is complete, I won't need your money anymore. When I finished, I walked out of Julian's office as if the pain itself were pushing me forward. That very day, I deposited the entire 1 million into my bank account. In my previous life, I had agreed to become Julian's kept woman only because my younger brother was gravely ill with a blood disorder. Every cent I earned went to my mother to pay for his treatment. But after Julian's death, after I had lost everything, the same mother and brother, whose eyes had once brimmed with affection for me, turned their backs without hesitation. With cold contempt, my mother told me she was ashamed to have a daughter who had been a man's mistress. Then, without another word, they threw me out of the house. It was only then that I learned the truth. My brother's illness had been cured years ago. All those years, he had feigned sickness just to extort more money from me. Thinking of the misery of that past life, a suffocating ache welled up again in my chest. But this time, it was different. That life was over. In this lifetime, not a single penny of mine would go to that so-called brother. As for my so-called parents, they no longer existed to me. And Julian? Julian had always been so enamored with his first love, Lorelei. Hadn't he? Well then, I would help him. I'd help him win her heart. Marry her. Walk hand in hand with her down the aisle. Even as the cancer in his body quietly ate away at him. And when the end came, Julian's entire fortune would belong to me. The thought still brought a faint ache to my chest. But my mood had lightened considerably. I went to the supermarket, bought Julian's favorite dishes, and even picked up a bottle of his preferred red wine. As soon as I returned home, I called his personal physician to postpone his upcoming health check. In my previous life, Julian's cancer had been discovered during that very checkup exactly 7 days from now. It was after that diagnosis that he'd proposed to me. This time, he wouldn't find out until after he'd married Lorelai. Once everything was arranged, I began preparing dinner, cooking his favorite dishes, hand-washing his socks and underwear. I even calculated the time he'd return home, just so he could see me playing the perfect, devoted woman. Sure enough, as I was rinsing suds from my hands, I heard the sound of the front door opening. "Honey, you're home," I said eagerly, stepping toward him. Julian's gaze swept over my flushed face and damp hair. He nodded with satisfaction. "Wash your hands and serve the food." He loosened his tie, shrugged off his jacket, and took his seat at the dining table. Julian was an old-school businessman, unlike those flashy tech entrepreneurs. He valued cost efficiency above all else. Spending $1 million to keep me wasn't just about appearances. He expected emotional labor, satisfaction in bed, and even domestic diligence. In my past life, he'd once told me he had me do all this because he saw me as a wife, that once the timing was right, he would marry me. But it was only after his death that I realized every word he'd said had been a lie, carefully crafted to keep me on his hook. He knew I loved him. He knew I dreamed of being his wife. So he used that dream to angling marriage like a carrot, before a fool, squeezing every ounce of value out of me without spending a cent more than he had to. I forced myself to banish the thoughts, obediently rinsed my hands, and returned to serve him. After filling his bowl, I sat quietly beside him, serving dishes and refiling his wine. When a grain of rice stepped to the corner of his mouth, I reached up to wipe it away with a napkin. Julian caught my fingertips, his eyes glinting. "You're being unusually compliant today." I lowered my gaze shyly, because my generous sponsor just dropped a pile of gold coins. Then, let out a low sigh. With a teasing smile, I slid into his lap. "Honey, if I can make you happy tonight, would you be willing to drop a few more?" My fingers trailed playfully along the edge of his throat. Julian's breath hitched slightly as he caught my hand. "Say that again." I slipped off his lap, pulled out my phone, and handed it to him. "Honey," I said sweetly, "your ex, Lorelai, just returned to the country. Look, this is her photo at a bar." Julian's expression darkened instantly. "Why are you keeping tabs on Lorelai? Serafina, don't forget your place." His tone turned cold. "You're just my kept woman. I did promise that if you behaved, I might marry you, but you'll never compare to Lorelai." He had said those exact words in my past life too. Only then, it had been after we were already married, when he was frail and bedridden. And Lorelai would often visit him in the hospital. They would reminisce right in front of me. Sometimes, they'd even embrace or kiss while I stood there, humiliated. I had cried back then, asking him if he thought that was fair to me as wife. And just as he did now, Julian had glared coldly and snapped. "Sylvia, don't forget you were only ever my kept woman. Marriage or not, you'll never be Lorelai." The memory sent another sharp pang through my chest. I let that pain carry me, forcing tears to well up in my eyes. "Honey, you misunderstood me," I whispered, trembling. I just... Before he could respond, I turned and ran toward his study, tears streaming down my face. Then, when on a low sigh, I pulled out a notebook and handed it to him. "Honey, I found this while cleaning earlier," I said softly. "When I read the love letters you wrote to Lorelai inside, I finally understood just how much you loved her. I cried the whole afternoon when I saw it. Although I love you so much, I can't bear to see you suffer like this. That's why I want to help you pursue Lorelai. Honey, in my eyes, you're truly a great person, so deserving of your true love." As I spoke, 2 tears fell from the corners of my eyes in desolation. Julian sat at the dining table, his expression as cold as ever, showing no emotion. But his eyes, filled with tumult, told me that my words had stirred something within him. It was understandable. Of course, after all, Lorelai was his unresolved past, his redemption from his youth. I had even seen, when he was gravely ill and nearly dying, how he would still hold Lorelai's photo, finding solace in it. With that kind of deep affection, I didn't believe for a moment that he didn't long for Lorelai. The room fell into an eerie silence for a long while. Just when I could no longer squeeze out a tear, Julian finally spoke, his voice low. "How do we do it?" My heart instantly dropped. I quickly grabbed my phone and sat beside him. "Honey. Look. Here's the information I got from a private detective. After Lorelai went abroad, she never dated anyone. She spent 10 years focusing on her studies. What does that tell us? It means she's only ever thought of you. She didn't go abroad because she was poor, she was forced by her family. So, I've got a plan. Lorelai opened an art studio, right? I'll sign up tomorrow. And you act like you're treating me really well. You'll shower me with expensive jewelry and luxury cars. I guarantee that in a month, Lorelai will come looking for you." Julian looked at my plan. And without a second thought, he replied, "It won't work. Lorelai isn't the type to care about such superficial things." Hearing this, I instinctively shot back, "Bullshit. If she doesn't care about money, who does?" But before I could finish, I caught myself and quickly corrected. "Honey. I'm not talking about you. I mean, you can't think like men do when it comes to women. Lorelai is proud and values her self-respect, so she won't like these things. But if these things are from you, she'll definitely like them. After all, she loves you so much. Jealousy will make a woman fully understand her feelings." Julian hesitated for a moment. I quickly grasped his hand. "Honey. Just give it a try. Please. I really don't want you to suffer like this anymore." As I spoke, 2 more tears slid down the corners of my eyes. Finally, having fulfilled when my fingers were aching from tightly gripping my phone, Julian spoke, his voice softening. "All right. I'll give it a try." Hearing his words, I instantly felt a surge of joy. I rushed back to my room and pulled out a quotation list. "Honey. Here's the breakdown of the costs for pursuing Lorelai. Take a look." As soon as Julian grabbed the list, his pupils constricted. 10 million? To stage a show. It's 10 million? Then he pointed to one of the items. "Why is this luxury car 2 million? Why don't you just rent a second and one from the market?" I gritted my teeth in frustration. "Honey. Lorelai is too smart. She'll spot a second-hand car from a mile away. Also, I liked you. Don't look at the clothing expenses and birthday presents that cost 1 million. But that 1 million is worth it. You've been thinking about Lorelai for years, 10 years. Over 3,000 days and nights. Every minute of your time is worth so much. A measly 10 million is nothing compared to those 10 years. Julian hesitated again. And I quickly leaned in and kissed the corner of his lips. "Honey. I promise you, once you marry Lorelai, I'll return everything to you. How about that?" After hearing my words, Julian finally agreed. While he was caught up in the moment, I quickly handed him the pre-prepared donation agreement, one with no conditions or cancellation clauses. Julian wanted to see the details, and I directly flipped to the last page. Handing him the pen quickly, I urged, "Honey. Don't you trust me? Don't worry. I'll help you win Lorelai's heart." Reluctantly, Julian signed his name. I didn't give him a chance to react, and immediately pressed my lips against his. "Honey. Before you win Lorelai's heart, will you spend more time with me?" That night, Julian exhausted me several times. The pain was unbearable, and there were moments when I nearly couldn't hold back from pushing him away. But every time I thought about the $10 million agreement Julian had just signed, I endured it. By the next morning, I woke up early to make breakfast for him. Then I crouched down and helped him wash his face, brush his teeth, and waited for him to leave the house before eagerly saying, "Honey, sorry. I'll send you the payment code for the luxury car later. Just have someone take care of the payment. Oh. And by the way, I'll sign up for Lorelai's art studio today. Remember, you need to pick me up with the luxury car at 7 p.m. Julian frowned slightly as he looked at me, but I kissed the corner of his lips again. Then, I began to paint a picture for him. "Honey. I guarantee tonight you'll have dinner with Lorelai. You might even get her WeChat and phone number." Julian's sharpness seemed to fall short at that moment. "Are you sure?" I nodded. "Of course. although Julian still had doubts. He didn't say anything else. He grabbed his briefcase and left the house. As soon as he was gone, I quickly changed my clothes and left as well. I headed straight to the Ford's dealership, looked at the cars, and within an hour, I had sent Julian the payment code. Once I confirmed he had paid, I had the dealership deliver the car to Julian's office, so he could see for himself that I wasn't lying. Afterward, I went to Lorelai's art studio. Only someone as foolish as Julian could believe that Lorelai was beyond reproach. In my previous life, Lorelai had returned to the country around this time. She came back after seeing the news about Julian's company listing on the Hong Kong Stock Exchange. Then, without a low sigh, Lorelai started subtly approaching Julian, even sending me countless WeChat messages, angrily cursing me as an unworthy woman and erring to compete for him. She even publicly exposed the fact that I was Julian's canary. And every time she provoked me, Julian would look at her with deep affection in his eyes. He even commented when he got home, "Lorelai, all these years, she's still thinking about me." The two of them began to ignore me, the woman who had spent 10 years with Julian and embarked on a relationship with no title, drawing closer in secret. Julian even prepared a lavish proposal. If it hadn't been for the day before, when Julian received his cancer diagnosis, followed by Lorelai urging him to marry me, the two of them would have already tied the knot by then. And Lorelai, who hadn't been in a relationship for years, had been pretending all along. Men of all skin colors, white, black, yellow, none had escaped her grasp, especially thinking back to my previous life. After Julian's death, how Lorelai, with the inheritance in hand, stepped on my face with the arrogant point of her high heels have filled me with a seething, bitter hatred. "I didn't think you'd be so deluded, Serafina," Lorelai sneered, "thinking that by marrying Julian, you'd get his money. Someone like you, just a bird who can't even soar, deserves to be shot by an enemy, plucked clean of feathers." Then, went on a well sigh, using Julian's resources, she had me find a job only to have her sabotage it, leaving me unable to even afford a roof over my head. In the end, I had to live under a bridge, and was eventually torn to pieces by stray dogs. The thought of the pain from those wild dogs, tearing me apart in my last life, made my chest tighten again. But I simply smiled bitterly. In this life, I would be the one holding the rifle. Bang. And it would be Lorelai and Julian who died. That afternoon, I signed up for a class at Lorelai's art studio. When she saw me, Lorelai smiled sweetly. "Serafina, you look so familiar. Were you someone from my past in the country?" "Sorry. My memory's a bit hazy. I filled my head with so much painting." Feigning innocence, I shook my head. "Lorelai, we've never met. I've always stayed at home. My husband loves me, and he doesn't like me being around bad women." The veins on the back of Lorelai's hand visibly popped. "Oh, really? Your husband sure loves you. But you're so young, how did you get married so early?" I smiled again, playing the naive role. "Not yet. But he says once he's less busy, he'll propose to me." Then, went out a lull sigh. I pulled out my phone. "Lorelai, you haven't met my husband, right? He's so handsome and capable. You wouldn't believe it, he started from nothing and took his company public in just 10 years. Recently, he even rang the bell at the Hong Kong Stock Exchange." I smiled sweetly as I continued, "But he's such a homebody. Whenever he goes out, he comes back right away. And when he does, he always brings me something special. Just the other day, he gave me a pink diamond." With that, I raised my hand, showing off the sparkling stone on my finger. "Lorelai, would you like to meet my husband? He loves me so much, just one call and he'll come running." Lorelai's expression darkened, her patience wearing thin. "Is that so? Well, why don't you give your husband a call and have him come over?" Without missing a beat, I pulled out my phone and dialed Julian's number. Julian's voice came through the phone immediately, soft and warm. "Okay, honey. I'm on my way." Half an hour later, Julian arrived at Lorelai's studio. Not only dressed in a new suit but also his hair neatly styled. He certainly wanted to make a good impression on his first love. I pretended not to notice, linking my arm through his. Honey. This is Lorelai. The one I mentioned on the phone. Before I could finish, Lorelai suddenly burst into tears. And the sobs fell one after another. She turned and fled the room. Julian, sigh, immediately concerned, pulled away from me. His brow furrowed as he snapped at me. This is what you told me could win Lorelai back? As he shoved me aside, I crashed into the corner of a table. The pain was sharp, but I couldn't focus on it. I acted desperate, calling out to him. Honey. What are you waiting for? Go after her. If she's crying, she clearly still has feelings for you. If she didn't care, she wouldn't be crying. Julian's expression softened. And without a second thought, he rushed toward Lorelai. As he disappeared out the door, I smirked, then turned to head toward the underground garage. Using the spare key, I drove off in the luxury car Julian had brought with him. In the afternoon, I sold the car at a used car market. That night, Julian didn't come home. Instead, it was Lorelai who added me on WeChat. I accepted her request immediately. She sent me several videos, each one showing Julian and Lorelai in intimate, passionate scenes. Along with the videos, Lorelai also sent me a text message. Serafina, your husband is mine now. A mocking smile curled at the corner of my lips as I read her message. Lorelai was exactly as I had expected once provoked. She'd quickly end up in bed with Julian. But what she didn't know was this, while she had been Julian's unfinished business. The one who had never let him have her. Now that she had finally gotten him, her value in his eyes had diminished greatly. The meat that's already on the table can never compare to the lychee so far away. I didn't reply to Lorelai's message. Instead, I sent Julian a voice message. My voice thick with feigned tears. Honey. Where are you? Aren't you coming home tonight? I put my phone away and went to sleep. When I woke up the next morning, I deliberately made my face pale and my hair disheveled. When Julian finally came home, I rushed to him in tears. Honey. But before I could continue, I wiped away the tears. I'm sorry. I didn't control myself. I shouldn't have been jealous. I took a few steps back. You must be tired. Let me run you a bath. Just as I turned to leave, Julian, Samayan, just as I had expected, grabbed me by the arm. Don't worry, he said gently. I've made up with Lorelai. But I'm not going to leave you. I froze for a moment. And then, like a child who had just gotten a candy, I smiled brightly. Really? Honey. Thank you. Thank you for letting me stay by your side. Julian, sigh, clearly pleased by my reaction, pulled me into his arms. The scent of Lorelai's perfume clung to him, and I felt a wave of disgust rise in my stomach. But I kept smiling, thrilled by my victory. Then, sigh, Lorelai and Julian started their relationship again. They were inseparable, always glued to each other. I was content to watch. But after a month of their relationship, worried that Julian's health might already be deteriorating, I decided to act. One day when he came home, I mysteriously pulled out a wedding ceremony brochure. Julian looked at me, puzzled. What's this for? I quickly forced a smile and said, Honey, I've heard something. There's a university teaching assistant at Lorelai's dance studio, and their relationship is really good. Julian's expression immediately turned cold. Serafina, I won't let you slander Lorelai. I pretended to be shocked and froze for a moment. Then hurriedly explained. Honey, you misunderstood. I mean, the university student is currently pursuing Lorelai. But she hasn't agreed to him. Although you and Lorelai are in a relationship, it's not officially recognized yet. You two have been together for more than 10 years. Why not just marry her? Don't worry. Once you marry her, you can come here whenever you want. It won't affect our relationship. Right now, I just want you to be happy. As I spoke, my expression was both pained and desperate. But beneath the despair, there was a trace of deep affection. Sure enough, Julian immediately pulled me into his arms. I didn't expect you to love me this much. Serafina, finding you in this life is truly my honor. As he spoke, Julian lowered his head to kiss me. I quickly pulled away. Honey. Before you marry Lorelai. You can't kiss me. Women are sensitive. And if Lorelai finds out we're still in contact, what will we do? We've already pretended to break up with Lorelai. Haven't we? So, you have to be careful. Women are extremely sensitive. Don't let her find out you're still in touch with me. Julian reluctantly agreed. And when Lorelai called, he left. As soon as Julian was out the door, I sent Lorelai a message. You bitch. You think you've won? The one who won is me. Julian has already agreed to marry me. Then, when on a low sigh, I sent Lorelai a photo of the wedding company's brochure and a video of Julian holding me tightly. That night, Julian blocked me on WeChat. That night, I saw photos of Julian proposing to Lorelai in her moments. At the same time, I received a friend request from an unfamiliar account. From now on, I'll contact you with this alternate account. Looking at Julian's message, I smirked. It was clear when it comes to men. The one you steal always becomes the most precious. Lorelai and Julian's wedding was held a month later. The reason for this was my relentless effort during that month. I worked hard to flaunt the new gifts Julian gave me. I worked hard to add emotional value to Julian, deepening his impression that I truly loved him, prompting him to keep showering me with gifts. Finally, having fulfilled my sigh, after Julian gave me his mother's antique necklace, Lorelai couldn't take it anymore. She quickly registered her marriage to Julian and hurriedly held their wedding. But she had no idea about Julian's selfishness. He delisted the necklace as part of his assets. So it wasn't actually mine. I had only the right to use it, not to own it. But at least Julian and Lorelai got married. From there, I continued, as always, to give Julian my full emotional value, loving him without disturbing him. With deep affection, I wished him and Lorelai a lifetime of happiness. 3 months after their wedding, one day, Julian fainted at his office. When I heard the news, I immediately changed out of my elegant clothes and put on pajamas, even running barefoot to the hospital. As soon as Julian woke up, I slapped Lorelai across the face. Furiously, I yelled at her. Is this how you take care of him? Lorelai, I gave you the man I love more than anything in the world. I cared for him for 10 years. And nothing happened. But you, after just 3 months of marriage, sent him to the hospital. As I spoke, I collapsed onto Julian's body, crying out in agony. Julian let out a low sigh. Are you okay? Please wake up. I regret it. I regret giving you to Lorelai. My cries, filled with desperation, echoed in the hospital room, sounding like the wails of a mourning bird. Lorelai clenched her teeth in fury, rushing over to grab me, ready to slap me. But in the next moment, Julian stopped her. Stop, Lorelai. If you dare hurt her, I'm done with you. He looked at me with a face full of concern, noticing the blood on my feet. Why didn't you wear shoes when you left? I sobbed, burying my face in his chest. I heard you were sick. I was so scared. I didn't think about wearing shoes. Julian, I can't live without you. As I spoke, I clung tightly to him, my heart breaking. The slap mark on Lorelai's face still hadn't faded, and the sight of me embracing Julian tightly made her face pale. She glared at Julian, furious. Julian, yapped I in the sigh. Don't forget, I'm your wife. Julian's expression darkened. So what? Serafina is also my woman. Lorelai's face grew darker and darker. Even with her fists clenched, she couldn't hide her anger. But I just looked at her with a mocking smile. Now she was angry. But I was only returning to her what she had done to me in my previous life. From then on, I visited Julian every day. Each time, I told him how much I loved him, how much I was suffering, how painful it was. But I never wiped his body, nor helped him with anything. Instead, Lorelai had become Julian's caretaker. And all the things I had suffered being hit with a cup, burned with boiling water, were now falling onto her. Every time I saw Lorelai being humiliated by Julian, I would cry and provoke her. Lorelai, if you don't want to take care of Julian, I'll do it. Please. Don't come to the hospital anymore. No matter what happens to him, no matter what he becomes, I'll still want him. Julian, moved by my words, once again gripped my hand tightly. Lorelei's face turned even greener with rage. Every time I saw her, holding back, trying to get Julian's wealth, I couldn't help but laugh. But she didn't know. I had already placed the blade to claim Julian's fortune in Julian's hands. A month after Julian fell ill, I handed him a pregnancy notice. And I told him, Julian, Leno, I'm pregnant. I used the sperm you left at the hospital to do in vitro fertilization. I'm sorry for doing this without your consent, but I really can't live without you. Even if you leave in the end, I still want a child who looked just like you, to keep me company. At that moment, Julian's eyes trembled with intense emotion. But then, he began to ask me not to tell Lorelei about my pregnancy. Not only did he instruct me not to share it with her, but even my prenatal checkups had to be done at the private hospital he arranged. On top of that, he began to take back control of the company, reasserting his authority over the business. This life's Lorelei was different from the one I knew in my past life. Her status was more distinguished than mine. And she was indeed the real Lorelei. So, after Julian fell ill, she took charge of Julian's company. But no matter how powerful she was, Julian was still the founder of that company. Thus, Julian was no longer the same as he was in my previous life. In my past life, he only needed to lie in bed and fight the disease. But in this life, he not only had to reclaim his company from Lorelei's control, but also endure Lorelei's betrayal. A man like Julian could never tolerate a woman, someone he had under his control, taking everything away from him. The discovery of his illness had come too late, and with all the work piling up, his condition deteriorated rapidly. I could only offer him emotional support. Julian, I beg you, don't focus on the company anymore. I don't want your wealth. I don't want anything. I just want you. But every time, Julian gripped my hand tightly. You don't want it. But my child does. Then he would keep working late into the night, pushing his frail body to its limits. After every night spent with him, when I stepped out of the hospital room, I would unconsciously smile and gently touch my belly. Be good, baby. Once mommy gets the fortune, we'll travel the world together. The child in my belly wasn't Julian's. I had selected the sperm from a sperm bank. After all, a man like Julian didn't deserve children. Not only that, but I had also destroyed his stored sperm. In just 3 months, Julian's condition worsened beyond repair. He could only survive with the aid of an oxygen tank. But still, he hung on to life. It wasn't until the lawyer he arranged walked into the hospital room and the two of them talked for an entire hour that Julian called me in. He clutched my hand tightly. Serafina, in this life, I'm sorry I didn't give you the marriage you wanted. But I've at least tried to make it right. I've left all my assets to you. And to the child in your belly. Then Julian passed out, looking at his limp, lifeless body. I calmly turned to the lawyer. Now I am the actual head of Julian's company. Correct? Lorelei can't take it from me. Right? The lawyer, surprised by my tone having always seen me as tearful and fragile during Julian's illness, replied hesitantly. Yes, hadith you. Serafina. President Julian has made all the arrangements. I sighed deeply and walked over to Julian's side. Looking at his closed eyes, his frail body, I coldly said, then notify the doctor. President Julian doesn't need resuscitation anymore. He can die in peace. The lawyer looked at me, horrified. I only smiled faintly. That night, Julian died. Afterward, I didn't arrange a funeral for Julian. What was the point? I had him cremated right away. I also instructed the lawyer to tell everyone that it was Julian's wishes. He was a private man, wanting nothing more than to be quietly laid to rest, his ashes scattered at sea. Everyone knew Julian had passed. But no one knew where his grave was. Could they know? There was no grave. After the cremation, I had him disposed of in the crematorium's drainage system. After all, the sewers all lead to the ocean. Different methods. Same purpose. Once Julian was dealt with, I went to Julian and Lorelei's house that night. Then, just like in my previous life, I kicked Lorelei out. Julian was even more ruthless than I had been. Not only did I take all of Lorelei's wealth, But I also made her indebted. Julian had initially hoped to use that debt to keep Lorelai from bothering me. The innocent one. But I turned it into a weapon in my hands. I knew the law, there was no need for violent measures. So, inheriting all of Julian's property and debts, I simply transferred the massive debt to 4 unloaned sharks for a zero repayment. That night, after throwing Lorelai out of the villa, the loan sharks captured her. Their service was quite good. They occasionally sent me pictures of Lorelai engaged in extreme activities with foreign clients. It was tragic. But I was satisfied. But not entirely. After all, in my past life, I had been killed by wild dogs. So, I gave the loan sharks $3 million to have the dogs visit Lorelai every now and then. I even asked them not to kill her. She deserved to live a long life. After dealing with Lorelai, my life became both rich and peaceful. Though the pregnancy was a painful experience, the rest of my life was calm. That was until a year later when the nanny suddenly informed me that my parents and brother had arrived, saying they wanted to meet the child I had given birth to. It was laughable. I calmly told the nanny to release the dogs, saying that if they wanted to visit me, they'd first have to get bitten by the dogs. Surprisingly, despite knowing I was wealthy, they still refused to be bitten by dogs. It seemed that money really wasn't worth as much as life. Later, they came looking for me again. It was just a small incident solved in just a few minutes. Afterward, I went upstairs and smiled as I kissed my daughter. Be good, darling. Mommy's here with you. The end. Her husband's first love committed suicide again. To console her, my husband actually proposed a divorce to me. Can't you be more understanding? It's just a fake divorce. I've already promised you that once her condition stabilizes, we'll remarry. What more do you want? Stop making a scene. This is something I owe her. In the past life, I had argued and refused, leading to his childhood friend's suicide by drowning in the river. He gave me the silent treatment for 3 years after that. Later, when I was pregnant, I fell down the stairs and was on the verge of death, calling for his help. But he turned his back and left without a second glance. This time, in my rebirth, I agreed to his wish. Fine, I said calmly. He suddenly lifted his eyes to look at me. Get out of the car. When I opened my eyes again, I was facing the cold, icy expression of the man, with the sound of a woman crying in the back seat. My heart trembled sharply. I had actually been reborn. Back to the day of the argument with Ethan, when he had coldly ordered me to get out of the car without hesitation. Perhaps seeing that I was still not moving, his handsome face showed visible impatience. His tone turned even colder than before. Lara, get out of the car. Don't make me say it a third time. Ian's emotions can't be stabilized while you're in the car. I'll drop her off first. Then I'll come back to pick you up. This time, I didn't make a scene. I grabbed my bag and obediently opened the door to get out of the car. It wasn't because I was obedient. It was because in the past life, when I refused to get out, Ethan had dragged me out of the car and dumped me on the side of a deserted road. I had left my phone in the car, and there were no other vehicles on the road. It had rained heavily on the way, and I had walked for 2 hours in the rain to get home. When I returned home, what awaited me was not his apology, but a divorce agreement handed over to me. Thinking back to that, a wave of sadness washed over me. Seeing that I was so sensible, Ethan paused for a moment, only snapping back to reality when Vanessa called him. He then started the car and drove off. I looked at the overseas graduate offer I had just received in my inbox. This time, I chose to go. In my previous life, I had rejected the offer, because Ethan had suddenly decided not to go abroad for a job. But what I didn't know was that Ethan had chosen to work abroad for Vanessa. Later, he changed his mind because Vanessa had returned to the country. Vanessa, who had married the wrong person abroad, became mentally unstable, sometimes normal, other times completely disoriented. When she had an episode, her memory only lingered on the age of 18. When she and Ethan were the happiest. Once she learned that Ethan was married, she would try to kill herself. For her sake, Ethan had often left me to be with her. During the time when my parents passed away, Ethan was busy with her divorce lawsuit, not coming back to be with me. leaving me to face the pain of losing my loved ones alone. On our wedding anniversary, he left me alone at a restaurant, only to go with her to see the sea. In the previous life, after Ethan dropped her off and was preparing to pick me up, she climbed to the rooftop to commit suicide. To calm her down, Ethan promised her he would divorce me. Thus, Ethan proposed a fake divorce. I screamed and argued against it, hysterically accusing Ethan, while he simply watched me go crazy, even blaming me for being selfish. Can't you be more reasonable? It's just a fake divorce. I promised you. Once she's stable, we'll remarry. What else do you want? Stop making a fuss. This is what I owe her. In the end, the divorce didn't happen. When Vanessa found out, she couldn't take it and jumped into the river to die. She left behind a note, Ethan, I love you. From the beginning to the end, I've only loved you. I'm sorry. But without you, I no longer have the courage to live. I wish you and your wife happiness. At that moment, I realized they had once been together. They were even forced to break up. After that, Ethan gave me the silent treatment for 3 years. He threw himself into his work, and when I tried to get close to him, he neither spoke nor rejected me, just staring at me coldly. I became the joke everyone talked about behind my back. Gradually, everyone began to accuse me of being the villain who broke them apart, a shameless mistress, a malicious woman. Ethan turned a blind eye to all of this. I knew. He hated me. He hated me for ruining his childhood friend's life. Compared to physical pain, mental torture could make one feel like life wasn't worth living. Later, I gave an unsuggested divorce. He grabbed my shoulder tightly, his eyes dark with anger. Laura, don't even think about it. Then, I unexpectedly became pregnant, focusing on the child and no longer thinking about him. Until, on Vanessa's Memorial Day, I discovered Vanessa's portrait had been placed in the room next to my baby's nursery. A chill ran through me. I couldn't understand his intentions and went to question him. But he impatiently snapped at me. Laura, it's her Memorial Day today. I don't have time for your nonsense. He stormed off. Then, I received a message from a private detective I had hired. Vanessa wasn't dead. I instinctively rushed out to tell Ethan the truth. But in my haste, I lost my footing and fell down the stairs, my abdomen hitting the ground, sending waves of excruciating pain. In my last moments, I called out for Ethan. He heard me and stopped, just as I thought I might be saved. He didn't turn around and walked away faster. I collapsed in a pool of blood, feeling my child slipping away, and despair consumed me. My heart shattered with regret. If I could do it all over again, I would never fall for Ethan. I would only love myself. To my surprise, when I opened my eyes again, I truly returned to the past. This time, Ethan, as you wished. I bless you and your first love. I will step aside. When I returned to the villa, Ethan hadn't come back yet. I took a shower in the bathroom, trying to wash away the sticky, blood-soaked feeling that clung to me. I touched my belly, whispering, I'm sorry, baby. I hope you're born into a loving family in your next life. Healthy and happy. The pain of losing my child surged in waves. The muffled sound of my sobs echoed in the bathroom. When I came out, I saw Ethan sitting on the sofa, a divorce agreement in front of him. When he saw my red, swollen eyes, he mistook it for sadness from being abandoned, and a trace of sorrow flashed in his eyes. He opened his mouth several times but stopped himself. Finally, having fulfilled my upset, he mustered the courage and, as in my past life, proposed the fake divorce. I didn't say anything, only staring coldly at him. I remained indifferent as he sighed deeply. Laura, let's talk about Ayuan, he said. I said nothing in response but sat down across from him. He spoke slowly, explaining, I've known her since we were children. After the Vanessa family went bankrupt, she moved abroad with her mother. Later, her mother married her off to a wealthy man. But he had violent tendencies and frequently abused her, leaving her both physically and mentally scarred. Especially during the divorce proceedings. That bastard kept sending people to try to drag her back. She lived in constant fear. And her mental state deteriorated. She couldn't be alone for a moment. I've been accompanying her for treatment these past 2 years. And she's gradually improved. But when she found out I was getting married, her condition suddenly worsened. The doctor said she can't handle any more stress. And I want her to live a normal life. Laura, you understand, don't you? He looked at me with earnest eyes. As he spoke of Vanessa's suffering. Her struggles. He tried to. No, he demanded that I understand his actions. He repeated that they were innocent. And that he now only regarded her as a sister. Once she recovered, he promised to immediately reconcile with me. But he didn't realize that the sorrow and affection in his eyes when he spoke of her, the anger he showed when mentioning her ex-husband, didn't feel like a brother's concern at all. I had seen the look of love in his eyes before. So I knew exactly what it looked like when he cared for someone. My fingers curled involuntarily. I thought I no longer cared about him. But when I saw him favoring her once again, the feelings I tried to suppress hurt. Sadness, anger, resentment rose within me. My heart ached as if pierced by a sharp knife. Wounded and bleeding. Pain deep to the bones. But I wasn't hysterical. Like I was in my previous life. I fought to suppress the roiling emotions inside me. Fine. I said. Flatly. He was stunned. His eyes widening in disbelief. I didn't care what his reaction was. Lowering my gaze, I picked up the pen on the table and signed the divorce agreement. The stroke of the pen was firm, decisive, and clean. Suddenly, Ethan seemed uneasy, a flicker of panic in his eyes. Laura, trust me, had into filled my and sigh. My heart belongs only to you. After this is over, I'll take you abroad on a trip. Also, I still owe you a wedding. When this is over, I'll make it up to you with a grand celebration. Don't worry. This is just a temporary separation. I'll always love you. He pulled me tightly into his arms, comforting me over and over again. His tone was gentler than I had ever heard. I leaned against his chest, listening to the frantic beat of his heart. A silent, cold smile tugging at my lips. Love me? Huh. I believed those words when Vanessa first appeared in the picture. In my past life, he treated me well. He was cold but thoughtful. He remembered every small thing I mentioned, every casual remark I made. We had had sweet, happy moments together. When did things change? It was during our 2nd year of marriage. When he started traveling abroad frequently. I thought it was just because of work. I never imagined it was to accompany his childhood sweetheart through a divorce. It was the man who used to buy me blueberry cakes who suddenly brought me strawberry ones. At the time, I pouted. Why strawberry? He froze for a moment. His eyes evasive. I thought you might get tired of blueberry. I just wanted to change things up. Later, I found out that it was Vanessa who loved strawberry cakes. When he bought me the latest high-end clothes and jewelry, he never managed to get the pieces I liked. I thought they were hard to find. Until I saw them on Vanessa. After she returned to the country, Ethan even gave her a house, a car, and shares. He never spoke of love to her. But his actions were full of it. He told me he loved me. Yet his actions never showed it. At that moment, the sound of something heavy hitting the ground came from the door. I turned to see Vanessa standing at the doorway. Her eyes teary as she looked at Ethan. Did I interrupt something? She said, biting her lip. Her voice shaky as she turned to leave. Ethan's face turned panicked as he suddenly shoved me away and chased after her. I could hear his voice in the hallway. I wanted you to help me with my hair. You used to do that for me. Ethan, do you not want me anymore? His voice was soft, tender. No. I'll always be here for you. Whenever you want. And just like that, they embraced. I cut in. Hold on. You forgot something. I looked at them calmly and handed Ethan the divorce papers. Ethan froze. His expression stiff. Instinctively, he tried to hide Vanessa behind him. His eyes frantic as they darted toward me. As if he feared I might do something to her. Vanessa, leaning in his arms, shot me a provocative glance. I closed the door without a word. I looked at the calendar on my phone, counting the days. 30 for more to go. The next day, Ethan and I went to the civil affairs office to register for divorce. After a month's cooling off period, we could receive our divorce certificate. On the way back, he suddenly spoke. Laura, don't tell our parents about this yet. Also, late, Grandpa's about to have surgery. Anyway, we'll remarry in the end. And telling them now will only cause more trouble. I sneered. It's trouble for your first love. Right? Ethan. You don't know. But I won't remarry you. I had been waiting for this divorce. The company sent me on a business trip for a week. I packed in a hurry and left. When I returned, the villa had changed drastically. The large roses I had personally planted in the garden were gone, replaced by jasmine. The interior furniture had been completely remodeled. Where we used to display our photos, now there were pictures of him and Vanessa. I scanned the surroundings inferently before heading upstairs. I opened the bedroom door, only to find that all my things were gone. And Vanessa was sitting there. A jolt ran through me as I entered and began searching. The things I had placed in the drawers were missing. Vanessa smirked. This is my room now. Get out. I fought to keep my anger in check as I asked. Where is the bracelet from my cabinet? You mean this? She raised her wrist, smiling faintly. It looks good, doesn't it? Give it back to me. My parents perished in a fire. Their home reduced to ashes. That bracelet was the only heirloom they left me. It had been specially made when I was born, crafted by a master who blessed it to ensure my safety and health throughout my life. I like it. It's mine now, she teased, a wicked grin on her face. Ethan said everything in this villa is mine now. You're divorced from him, so you have no right to take his things. This is mine. I didn't waste any more words and reached to snatch it from her. Seeing she couldn't win, Vanessa deliberately tossed the bracelet onto the floor. With a sharp crash, it shattered. My body stiffened instantly. My mind went blank, and I trembled as I picked up the shattered pieces of the bracelet. Vanessa smirked sarcastically. Oh no, no. What a pity. The bracelet is broken. I was so furious that I couldn't stop shaking. Tears welled up in my eyes as I yelled, Vanessa, you deserve to die. Seeing the fury in my eyes, Vanessa stepped back, frightened. I stepped forward and raised my hand to slap her. In the next second, my wrist was gripped tightly. Ethan's angry face appeared before me, and he coldly warned, Laura, don't you dare. Without hesitation, I raised my other hand and slapped Vanessa hard. Then, let out a low sorry. In one swift motion, I slapped Ethan as well, my voice trembling with rage. Get out of my way. She broke my bracelet. His face shifted, and he turned to glance at Vanessa. She nervously clutched his shirt, looking up at him with a pitiful expression. I didn't do it on purpose. Ethan was silent for a moment, gently wiping the tears from the corner of my eye. I'm sorry. I didn't know. I shouldn't have yelled at you. Ion does things she can't control when she's emotionally triggered. But it's not intentional. She doesn't know the significance of the bracelet. Can you not hold it against her? Don't be angry anymore. I'll have the best craftsman fix your bracelet. My pupils constricted, and it felt as though my heart was being ripped open. Bleeding, let out a low sorry, with the pain suffocating me. All the sorrow, resentment, and fury surged in my mind. He knew how much this bracelet meant to me. But still, he chose to defend Vanessa without a second thought. He wouldn't even let her apologize. I raised my hand to slap him. Ethan, you're so noble. You divorced me for her. And I agreed. But why did you bring her into our home? Why did you let her pull out my roses, take over my bedroom, and mess with my things? Just because she's mentally ill, I have to put up with her? What's next? Will she try to force you to sleep with her by threatening to kill herself? Should I just endure and pack you up to send you to her bed? Is it because she's sick? Or do you have other intentions? Enough, Laura. You're going too far. Ethan glanced at Vanessa instinctively. Seeing her pale face, his guilty expression turned colder. You'd better stop. I couldn't be bothered to argue with him anymore. Dragging my suitcase out of the villa, Ethan tried to chase after me, but Vanessa went crazy and stopped him. I went back to my old place and settled in, tidying up the room. 26 days left. For the remaining time, I handled the paperwork for school, booked my flight, and finished the projects at hand. I wrapped up my work early and prepared to focus on my studies. Once I left the villa, I didn't care about Ethan and Vanessa anymore. Whether they were close or slept together in the villa, it had nothing to do with me. However, after I shifted my focus back to myself, Ethan started messaging me frequently. He asked about my well-being and reported his daily schedule to me. Just like in the past life, he desperately tried to fix our relationship, but all he received was my indifference. The way he had given me the silent treatment in the past life, I returned it to him with the same coldness. I ignored his messages, only replying with a couple of sentences when I felt like it. Are you annoying? Don't you know I'm working? I'm very busy. I don't have time to waste talking to you. He called me, but I didn't answer. He came to pick me up from work, but I stayed late at the office. Noticing my coldness, he stopped bothering me as frequently. Instead, he sent flowers through someone, as well as new, high-end clothes and jewelry to my home. I looked at those things and scoffed. In the past life, these were things Vanessa had received. Now, I didn't care for them, but he was eager to send them my way. I didn't respond to him. Instead, I snapped a photo and sent it to Vanessa. That day, Ethan stopped messaging me. Vanessa updated her social media that night, 7 years apart, and now you're finally back by my side. This time, I'll hold on to you tightly. The picture showed the two of them embracing by the seaside. I liked her post and commented, "Blessings locked forever." Within seconds, the post was deleted. The next second, Ethan called me. As soon as I answered, he began scolding me without hesitation. "Lara, what did your comment mean? Are you trying to make things worse? It's just a post on social media. Why are you being so sarcastic? Isn't it enough that you've been taking out your anger on me? There should be a limit to how unreasonable you can be." In his eyes, all this was me making small moves behind his back, refusing the fake divorce. Vanessa was crying, looking pitiful as she said, "Oh fine, Ethan. Does Lara blame me? But I didn't mean it. The day before, you promised me your love, but when I woke up, it was 8 years later. And my boyfriend had become someone else's husband." I understood now she had been triggered and lost her memory again. Ethan spoke gently. "It's not your fault. I was going to divorce her anyway." Then, let out a low sigh. Turning to face me, his tone hardened. "Lara, apologize." I couldn't help but laugh bitterly. I cursed under my breath. "You two are both insane. Go get your brains checked." I glanced at the countdown on the calendar, took a deep breath, and told myself not to be angry. Not angry. Not angry. 18 more days. I could hold out a little longer. On the day I was to get the divorce certificate, Ethan rolled downstairs to pick me up. He seemed to have dressed up specifically, wearing a red suit I had never seen before. Bright and festive. If you didn't know better, you'd think we were going to pick up our marriage certificate. When Ethan met my gaze, there was a clear hint of guilt in his eyes. Vanessa sat in the passenger seat, wearing a red dress. They looked like a couple. It was obvious who had prepared their matching outfits. Suddenly, I remembered when we were dating. I had asked him to wear matching pink sweatshirts for a date, and he had coldly refused. I couldn't help but find it a little amusing. He had never disliked brightly colored clothes. He'd just been dressing for the wrong person. Dead end. Grandfather's surgery is this afternoon. He asked for this himself. For once, Ethan actually explained. My face didn't flicker. I turned and got into the car ahead of him. Ethan's usually gentle expression hardened. His gaze fixed on my back. A strange unease pressed against his chest. That unease grew heavier the closer we came to the Civil Affairs Bureau. As we waited in line, he glanced out at the low, leaden sky. It was so oppressive it made one's breath catch. Then he looked back at my calm, indifferent face. Suddenly, he didn't want the divorce anymore. "Lara, let's not do this. Okay? Or maybe you're right, there are other treatments for Ayuan's illness. It doesn't have to be divorce." My heart jolted. But I asked coldly, "And if the other treatments don't work? Am I supposed to let her cling to you for the rest of my life?" You don't want to divorce. But I do. Using the excuse I had prepared, I said firmly, we're divorcing. Get her treated and send her away. I don't want to see the two of you acting all tender and ambiguous anymore. At my words, Ethan secretly exhaled in relief, the anxiety evaporating from his chest. He squeezed my hand, his voice uncharacteristically soft. All right. Then afterward we'll go on vacation. Come to think of it, we'd been married 3 years and never had a honeymoon. The man who was usually so terse was talking far too much today. He rambled on about post-divorce travel plans until people nearby began to stare. After all, no one comes to the divorce registry to discuss honeymoon destinations with the wife who's about to become his ex. I smiled brightly on the surface, while inside I was cursing him. Idiot. Who wants a honeymoon with you? Tomorrow I'm gone. When the divorce certificate landed in my hands, my mood soared. Stepping out of the Civil Affairs Bureau, I tilted my head up toward the sky. The sun was breaking through the clouds, the day slowly brightening. A breeze brushed my hair, carrying away the last of my shadows. For the rest of my life, I would walk into the light. As soon as we came out, Vanessa rushed over to Ethan, snatching the divorce certificate from his hand and beaming. But Ethan bypassed her and came straight to me. We're going to see grandfather later. Come with me. I let a rare smile touch my eyes and lips. No, I call the car. Different cars, but the same destination. Hand in hand, Ethan and I entered grandfather's hospital room looking like a loving couple. Whatever he said, I echoed softly, sometimes ducking my head with a shy smile. I played this role for 3 years in my past life, I knew it by heart. Grandfather noticed nothing amiss. Anxious about the surgery, he gave us endless instructions. In my previous life, petting Fulsil sigh. After Vanessa's death and her scandalous parting words, everything had blown up. Grandfather learned the truth, his anger worsening his condition. And he died before he ever reached the operating table. This time, the surgery went well. At last the stone in my heart rolled away. I had no more ties left. That final night, I stayed to watch over grandfather. My flight was at noon. Back home, I dragged my prepacked suitcase toward the airport. At the entrance to the residential complex, I saw Ethan getting out of his car. When he spotted me, luggage piled high and passport in hand, his face darkened and he strode toward me. Where are you going? My body stiffened. Inwardly I cursed him for picking the perfect moment. But outwardly I remained unruffled. A last-minute business trip. He frowned. Wasn't your project wrapping up? What's so urgent? Our companies had joint projects. His boss knew mine. He was aware of my work progress, and not that I'd already quit. I smiled lightly, blurting out, "You don't understand my work." I froze. It was a line he'd often thrown at me. He opened his mouth to say more, but his phone rang. It was the housekeeper. I caught Vanessa's and Ethan's mother's names drifting from the speaker. His expression shifted dramatically. Without another glance at me, he spun on his heel and drove off, and I climbed into a different car, heading the opposite way. Goodbye, Ethan. I even prepared you a farewell gift. I hope you enjoy it. When I left, I told no one. I only left Ethan's mother a letter and a file. I told her how Vanessa had threatened and suicide to force Ethan into divorcing me. And when their affair began, I also included documents proving Vanessa's collusion with a psychiatrist. Everything about her feigned madness laid bare for Ethan's mother to see. Vanessa's mother had once been Ethan's father's mistress, and had even shown up to provoke Ethan's mother. After she was cast aside, she latched onto another rich heir. This time she was shrewder. She gave birth in secret, before presenting the child. The heir was a playboy who accepted the baby but not the woman. So Vanessa stayed with her mother's family and grew up in the same social circle as Ethan. When the two of them began dating in their senior year of high school, Ethan's mother discovered Vanessa's parentage and tore them apart at once. Vanessa, like her mother, took the $5 million offered and obediently went abroad. At that time, because of our company's expansion, my family had just moved to this city. Ethan's father and mine had been war comrades. Over time the two families became close. Ethan's mother, eager for her son to forget Vanessa, actively pushed the two of us together. I'm a sucker for looks. Ethan was tall, handsome, and exactly my type, so I pursued him. We naturally ended up together. Until Vanessa returned. I had no idea Ethan had once loved and lost another woman. Ethan's mother adored me. Treated me as a daughter all these years. In my previous life. When she learned that Ethan had cold-shouldered me for 3 years. She stormed into his office and beat him until he vomited blood. When I became pregnant. She planned to leave her property to my child. So even if I left, Vanessa could never take my place as Mrs. Afran. Ethan's mother would never accept her son loving a mistress's daughter. I'm no saint. I can't forgive Vanessa for wrecking my marriage and then faking her death to slip away. I can't forgive Ethan for 3 years of silent cruelty. No one knows how. In those years, I drowned in self-doubt, inferiority, loneliness, and pain. I will not bless them. I want them to spend the rest of our lives as I did in my past life. In pain, in loneliness, in despair. After getting off the plane, I stayed at a hotel. I thought I would have trouble sleeping alone in a foreign country. But to my surprise, I was reborn and had the most restful sleep I'd ever had. The next day, I met with a real estate agent to look at apartments. Everything went smoothly. I confirmed the apartment, handled my enrollment procedures at school, and settled in. Graduate life was fulfilling, attending classes, reading papers, writing essays, and having group meetings. In my spare time, I joined club activities and made quite a few new friends. My life was experiencing something new. 3 months later, I heard about Ethan again. I ran into one of his friends on the street, and he seemed surprised to see me. He told me that Ethan had been desperately looking for me for the past 3 months. He said I was ruthless, truly abandoning Ethan and leaving him. He went on to say that after I left, Ethan's mother had stormed into his house the next day and slapped Vanessa. After learning the truth about Vanessa, Ethan immediately kicked her out. It turned out that Vanessa hadn't just pretended to be mentally ill to deceive Ethan. Even her story of being abused overseas was a lie. She wasn't forced by her mother to marry. She'd seduced a wealthy man and used pregnancy as a means to secure a position. Before that, she'd been living a promiscuous life. So when the child was born, her skin color was off, having been cheated on. Her husband was naturally angry enough to beat her. She didn't resist, instead trying to win him over. When her husband's family fell into financial trouble, she immediately filed for divorce and even hired someone to put her husband into a coma. That's why her former in-laws never let her off the hook. As for why she came back to Ethan, it was clear it wasn't for love, but for his family's wealth. After she was kicked out, Vanessa, unwilling to give up, repeatedly blocked Ethan at his company and villa. Ethan, furious, sent people to return her to her ex-husband's family. To prevent her from escaping, her in-laws broke her legs, ensuring she would spend her life taking care of her paralyzed ex-husband. My friend also said Ethan had been so drunk that he ended up in the hospital multiple times, encouraging me to go back and check on him. He didn't really cheat, just give him a chance to realize his mistake. He has always loved you. I lowered my head and smiled faintly, stirring my coffee slowly with a spoon. The aroma filled the air as I calmly responded. I overheard what you all said in the private room. My friend's words faltered as he looked up at me in shock. That day marked the 19th day of the divorce cooling off period. And it was also my friend's birthday. Sitting across from me, Ethan hadn't brought me along, but had openly brought Vanessa. It was my last day at work, and I had stepped out to take a call. As I passed a private room, I heard someone call Ethan's name. I instinctively stopped and peered through the door crack. I saw Ethan with a few of his friends. One of them asked, "No way. Ethan, are you serious? Are you really divorcing Laura for your ex-girlfriend?" "Yeah. Aren't you afraid she'll run away?" Ethan chuckled lightly, swirling his wine glass with a confident smile. "She won't. She can't live without me. Besides, she's an orphan now. Without me, where could she go? You all know her personality. A few sweet words, and she'll stick to me like glue." His friends laughed out loud. "Yeah. When Lara saw Ethan for the first time, she was hooked, following him around like a puppy, and couldn't get rid of him. I clenched my fists, a bitter smile creeping onto my face. So all these years, in his eyes, I was nothing but a loyal dog. At that moment, Vanessa's sarcastic voice rang out from behind me. So you were the one chasing after him all along? No wonder when I casually mentioned it to Ethan, he immediately agreed to divorce you. As a fellow woman, I advise you to have some self-respect. Don't just throw yourself at any good-looking man. It's so cheap. She was trying to provoke me, but I didn't give her the satisfaction. Instead, I offered a faint smile. At least I won't throw myself at someone else's husband. That's what's really cheap. Whether you said it casually or desperately sought him, you know it yourself. Vanessa's face turned pale and flushed with anger as she scoffed, shoving her shoulder into mine before walking proudly into the room. Once she entered, the people inside began teasing her. Amid the cheers, she sat next to Ethan, shyly resting her head on his shoulder. Her cheeks flushed. She looked at me and smirked, clearly provoking me. I watched as Ethan put his arm around her, defending her. All right. Stop making a scene. She's shy. A wave of discomfort surged in my chest, and I turned to leave. My friend across the table looked awkward, unable to say anything further. The next day, having fulfilled my session, I saw Ethan at school. I wasn't surprised given his capabilities. It was only a matter of time before he found me. He had flown in overnight, looking worn out. Lara. My friend's knowing glance shifted between us as he quietly asked what our relationship was. I casually replied, ex-husband. Ethan's eyes flickered, and his expression dark and as if he had suffered a heavy blow. He hurriedly explained. No. I'm her husband. I cut him off. Ethan. Let's talk. We sat down on a bench on campus. He tilted his head, his gaze fixed firmly on me as he spoke in a low, strained voice. I never really intended to divorce you. It was Vanessa who threatened to kill herself. When her family went bankrupt, my mom sent her abroad with $5 million to get her away from everything. She was forced to marry there and was abused by her husband. I thought it was all my fault, so I felt guilty and wanted to make it up to her. I just wanted her to get better quickly and return to a normal life. But I didn't know it was all a lie. She deceived me. Darling. I swear. I haven't been unfaithful. I didn't cheat. I've already restored the house. I replanted the roses in the yard. I looked at him quietly, my expression unwavering. It seemed he understood my feelings. As his face slowly turned pale, and his once strong features were now tinged with sorrow. Is it because I didn't cheat that you still won't forgive me? I nodded slightly. Yeah. His eyes reddened, and he grabbed my hand tightly. Why? Is it because I pretended to divorce you for her? I looked at him, and for a moment, I saw the frantic me from my past life, asking the same question over and over. Strangely, I felt a sense of vengeance. I smiled faintly. Do you know why I chose to come to this school? Because back then, you said you were going to transfer here for work. So while working, I secretly studied for the entrance exams, planning to give you a surprise. But what about you? What's the real reason you're here? Is it for your childhood sweetheart? To help her get a divorce? For the past 2 years, you've left me for her countless times on my birthday, our wedding anniversary, when I was sick and waited for you all night, and when my parents died, you weren't by my side during my darkest, most helpless moments. With all that, how can you still say you didn't cheat? No, you just didn't cheat physically. Stop telling me you only love me. I don't believe it. I can't feel your love. Ethan's face drained of color, and a tear fell from the corner of his eye. No, Lara. Forgive me. Please. I've already sent Vanessa away. She won't be in front of you again. He cried, his tears falling onto the back of my hand. I almost found it amusing. The first time I saw him cry was in my past life when he found out Vanessa had passed away. At that time, he had red-rimmed eyes, grabbing my shoulders like an angry beast, lashing out at me. Lara. She's dead. Are you happy now? Satisfied? Those tears so cheap. I pulled my hand away, wiping it on his shirt. Openly showing my disgust. Not here. I don't take out the trash. Ethan froze. His eyes full of anguish as they met mine. I felt a pang of sadness in my heart. He moved across from me, taking me to and from class every day, buying me breakfast, bringing me lunch and dinner, occasionally sending flowers or gifts like bags and jewelry. He shamelessly joined some social events or dinners, pushing himself into my life. I kept pushing him away. His devotion earned him sympathy and trust from many of our classmates and neighbors, who spoke up for him, urging me to forgive him. A man like him was hard to find, they said. I didn't know how to explain. So I simply replied, I hope you find a partner just like him. No matter what they said, that was my only answer. Over time, they started to see the truth. It wasn't as simple as they had thought, and eventually, no one spoke up for him anymore. For work reasons, he had to return to his home country, only coming to see me on weekends. After a few years, I finished my graduate studies and chose to stay and pursue a PhD. As for Ethan, I ignored him. There was no possibility for us. Between us lay to lost lives. Forgiving him would be an apology to my past self and to that unborn child. 3 years later, I was in the library writing my thesis when I suddenly received a call from Ethan's mother. Ethan had been in a car accident and was declared dead after failed attempts to save him. When I heard the news, I froze. Because today was the day I had died in my past life. Was this karma? I didn't know. But suddenly, my heart felt much lighter. Outside the window, the storm abruptly stopped, and sunlight pierced through the clouds, bathing me in its warmth. The dampness left by the rain was swept away, replaced by a gentle, comforting warmth. From that moment on, nothing stood in my way, and I walked forward with the sun, stepping confidently into the future.